Due to no demand whatsoever, I thought I'd do the same with my decade-old restaurant Fractalus captures. This is the only version that actually has a title screen, which surprises me really. Has anyone in the Atari community gone back and added this? I don't know. Wasn't a great tune on the C64 or Atari in the first place, so. Okay, the engines are not as good as the other versions. But it is all there. You do have an intro. There's a hell of a lot of, dithering going on there. But, this is just the intro at the end of the day, so. Does take its time though. Now again, shock horror, I might be watching the video I made for the C64 version. Now the limited palette on the Apple, they could have done something else with the colours. It's just like, I don't know, it's hard to describe it. It's like looking at the C64 version, looking through a mesh grill with my buggered up retinas. Now the frame rate, the C64 version is not as fast as the Atari version. Yeah, it's about 90% faster on the Atari. And the C64 version is about somewhere between 25 and 50% faster than this. So there's no atmosphere with these graphics. You can barely make out what they're attempting to draw. It doesn't work. It's not just a problem with the palette colours. It's like if you've got dithering in the sky and on the mountains, it looks really dumb. Because it makes it hard to make out exactly what it's trying to draw with the black lines in the mess of dithering. And you've got no atmosphere from, any of the sound effects. Oh, I don't know. This is not a good version. Right, so okay, we've seen that version, and let's just go back in here and let's do the Amstrad version actually. I'll save the Atari version for last as a reference. Now let's do it again in the same order, so we do Spectrum now. So here we go. This is a Spectrum version. Okay, don't know what I was doing there. Probably stroking me cat, poor thing. She's long passed away now. I would have recorded these while my cat was watching actually. So there's some dithering here, but no, it's not as bad. I don't know what's going to happen though, because they won't be using the colour. I see what they've done here, and it actually works much better. So again, I think it's a little bit faster than the Apple II. And I think it's a little bit slower than the C64 version. Doesn't quite seem right. Now, of course, the reason I can't watch the Rescue on Fractalus one is simply because on the C64, it's part of my Christmas special, Ghostbusters and Rescue on Fractalus. There's a whole thing around that, but basically I've got those two games from one of my siblings at Christmas. And one of those games was already a year old. I think Ghostbusters had been out a year anyway. So the graphics are certainly good enough to show you what you're supposed to be doing. You're on an alien planet anyway. So, you know, you don't get orange or brown, obviously, on the Spectrum. And the yellow sky kind of works. The sound effects are working for me. So this is obviously, this is obviously going to be, you know, the same sound effects as the Amstrad. They do sound the same. These are not beeper sound effects, so this must be for the Spectrum 128, I take it. Even though it don't need the 128K. It's still fast enough to be playable. I suspect that, you know, the game window is actually smaller too. So, and you have to remember the C64 version was actually converted from the Atari version by the guy who wrote Shamus. And Shamus is not only a simple game, it's not very well programmed. There's no programming talent there. He's not the Ayrton Senna of C64 programming. Let's put it that way. And the Atari version was written by an absolute genius who invented fractal mountings. And he was so talented as a programmer, he basically knocked up the first, you know, alpha version of the engine in one night. Lucasfilm Games, or whatever they were called then, gave him an Atari 800, and he went home. By the next morning he'd got something up and running, and he'd never written anything in machine code on that machine. So the guy was a genius. Now obviously the whole thing was optimized, but this is still okay. If you had a Spectrum and you wanted something, I mean, how many games are like this where you fly around the planet? I think it's fine actually. Maybe the fractal routines could have been speeded up a bit more, but you have to remember there's no character mode on that machine, so yeah. Right, we'll do the Amstrad version next actually. So here we go. Amstrad version right now is going to be starting now. Is that the Amstrad version? So the window looks a bit small to me again. Maybe that's just how it is. Don't know why I waited so long. Here we go. So plenty of colours there for the launch sequence. And sound effects are fine. Actually the music is fine as well. No, I've got no problem with that. Very similar to the C64 speed at the moment, but we'll see. This is more or less the same speed as the C64 version. You know, there could be like maybe 10% difference in it, but basically it's pretty similar. So obviously I've gone to full thrust there to check out the speed. Mad Commodore, the speed demon. It's very similar to the C64 version, actually. I used to really enjoy playing this game. I actually used to play it on my friend's Atari 800. So he had this and, you know, the demo version before it, or unreleased version, called Behind the Jaggy Lines. So he was a filthy pirate. He had a happy copy chip, or whatever they were called, inside his were they the 1050 disk drives? Yeah, and he had a different chip in his 810 disk drive. They had so many pirate discs, it was unbelievable. So this is certainly good enough. So yeah, I can heartily recommend this. If you've never played Rescue on Fractalus, and you only have certain machines as real hardware, not everyone is mad enough like me to try and get one of everything. I'm not buying a Falcon, they're not good enough for the money now. There's no good games on the Falcon worth that sort of money. I mean, for the price of a Falcon, I could buy 2 PCs that could run Unreal Engine 5. It's ridiculous. And then I could make my own version of Rescue on Fractalus, which I might just do, because I don't like what other people have been working on. I wonder why I haven't shot down any of the turrets. I think I was a bit preoccupied with the old, you know, game engine speed first. But I did used to basically just fly around full speed, both on the version I had at home on the C64 and my mate's Atari 800. I did consider getting an Atari 800 XL when they went down to like £99, but you see, then you have to buy the Atari tape deck, which is another 30 quid at least. My mate couldn't help me out with any pirate copies unless I bought a disc drive, which would probably have been more than 100 quid. So I never got one. I just didn't have the money. But if I had the money, I would have bought an Atari 800 XL just to play this game. It was on cartridge as well. There's not as many levels. It's not quite the same. It's like a cut down version. And that would have been 30 quid as well. And yeah, that brings you back to the VCS days. And I really wanted to get away from the VCS era, where it was like, oh man, I want another game, but it's 30 quid. That's really the reason why I went with a VIC-20, which luckily blew up 3 months later, and I got a C64. Great days. So yeah, you get the idea, and yeah, I heartily recommend this actually. So let's go to the Atari version now. I'm curious to know what the C64 music sounded like now. Can't specifically remember that, but yeah, this version has got everything basically. It's got more colours everywhere, from your cockpit to what you see outside. Not so much in the game engine, but it does have more palette options for like fading the sky and stuff. Yeah, this version is about twice the speed of the C64 and Amstrad version, give or take. And stuff fades in nicely through the atmosphere, and so I'm already thinking, yeah, Yeah, I want to blast on this because I was playing it on the emulator on the projector. I've had a projector since 2004. You know, the graphic update on this game is so fast, it's like beyond belief. It was a revelation back then for the few who knew about it. And you really could play it like, you know, like an arcade game. You know, there's no excuse of it being like, oh, it's not meant to be an arcade game, it's strategic, that's why it's 2 frames per second on you. Yeah, whatever, mate. There's no reason why a real-time strategy game shouldn't be as good as an arcade game as far as coding goes. That's just lack of standards, but this is my personal favourite version. I had a C64. I would never have sold my C64 and got an Atari for, like, you know, just one game. Well, actually, there is another game I really liked on the Atari that was shit on the C64. Star Raiders 2. That's really a different thing, but nah. Your parents spent a hell of a lot of money getting you a home computer, and it was like, okay, I got a C64. There is Rescue on Fractalus on it. It'll have to do. But this is my favourite version. It's that simple. So, you know, you can really appreciate the genius of Lauren Carpenter's programming just watching the game engine. When you're playing it, you get a real sense of flying through the canyons, more than any other version. You know, it's not 25 frames per second, but it's fast enough for the whole thing to be like believable and to make sense. Yeah, it's a great game on the Atari. And it's a great game anyway. So, you know, as long as the frame rate is really good enough. So I'd say, if you got a real Amstrad, a real C64 or a real Atari, and you have to find a copy of this. Or some way of playing it without having to buy it. The instructions are out there for almost every version, so you don't actually have to blow up the thing, which you can't always do for some reason. But yeah, you know, that's that really.